Welcome back to another episode of the Libertarian Uncensored podcast. I'm Jim Mitchell. Get right into it. Supreme Court's ruling on humane treatment of pigs could catalyze a wave of new animal welfare laws by her and that's from theconversation.com. And you could make a case for animal welfare laws. I think my thoughts on animal welfare laws are, I think the NAP, as we know it currently, kind of implies to only humans, but I guess you could maybe make added into endangered species as well. But I guess that's kind of a personal preference. I think on what the value of endangered species are and what the value of other species are, especially on when it comes to farm animals, because we do eventually kill those for their meat, a lot of them, and that's important to remember. Because is there any humane way to really do that? That's the question. That's what my thoughts on that issue are. Then we have Fire to Uvalde. Lift ban on Favre who questions school safety or will sue from Reason.com by her And I'll say, I personally think we need to support free speech whenever possible, so I'd agree with that. I think Fire is the much better modern version of the ACLU in a lot of ways, because they stand up for not just liberal speech, but also speech that's right of center, which is pretty much labeled as Nazi speech these days by pretty much most of the internet. So I think that's important to remember. And yeah, I'd agree with that. Next we have bat-wielding attacker injures Virginia congressman's district office staffer at NBCnews.com by Ninja Lover. And I said on the issue, the government uses this to push for common sense bat control. And I also said that, they have common sense gun control, and they have common sense back control, it looks like. And also, it just feels like it might be a false flag, like the I threw the beer can at Ted Cruz last year. I think a lot of political violence in the U.S. is a false flag. And, I feel like, especially since he's a Democrat, they might try and push, the media always tries to push how the MAGA Republicans are these crazy guys who are always trying to destroy democracy, and I think that's important, So I think a lot of these political violence things might be feds. I do think social media is contributing to this culture of violence, but I don't think we should justify censorship, because I think violent speech should be legal but stigmatized, and I think that's important to remember. Yeah. Next we have Florida teacher being investigated after showing Disney movie with gay people in it, even after getting parent permission slips from your state officer, and that's from CNN.com. And I think, I think that's a bit too far. I think teachers should be able to show whatever non-pornographic movies they want, as long as they're age appropriate, I would say. And I think a movie like Strange World, which this appears to be, I think that would probably be considered age appropriate if one of the characters is gay, as long as they're not engaging in any explicitly sexual action, I would say. So that's why I think on the issue, yeah. Next we have Supreme Court to hear a racial redistricting case from South Carolina from Politico by Ninja Lover. And I think, everything's going to be slightly gerrymandered, and I think this might be what that's about. So we'll see how that goes, and yeah, we'll see how that goes. Yeah. So we'll see if that goes well for the court, and how they decide on which. The thing with gerrymandering is this innately, I would say, prone to bias. Because, there's always going to be some lines to be drawn, and they might be unfair. A new lawsuit puts the online white supremacy pipeline on trial. It's an archive link from Wired, I think. Yeah, Wired. And it's by her umph. And I said, I don't think you should sue social media companies like Reddit or gum companies for how people may misuse them. If someone runs over someone else with a car on purpose, you don't sue the car company. And I think that's important to remember. Yes, because... and also I think like lawsuits like this give the people suing too much power. I really hate how they always give the people suing more power than a lot of the defendants a lot of the time. I think this might give them too much power, and it might lead to more regulated internet, which I don't really like. So that's my thoughts there. Texas bill would legalize townhouses, but from Reason.com by her umph. I think that's good. I think people should be able to build anything they want wherever they want. That's kind of a libertarian position. As I said, I think on the last episode, I wouldn't like if they build a strip club on my house, but if you have the force to maintain that and the thing and the ability to maintain that, you should be able to. Next is Argentina raises interest rates to 97% as it struggles to tackle inflation from CNN.com by her. Sounds like that might be coming to the U.S. soon. I know Argentina's has probably had one of the shittiest economies in the world for quite a while. Their economy's so shitty and it's been for so long, and they might actually put a libertarian into office, which is just mind blowing up to me here in the U.S. I don't think that'll ever happen here, but we'll know if we default on our debt. We'll see what happens. Maybe we'll get a libertarian up here too. You need to fight for your right to AI representation by Nathan R.H. And he says an AI can settle your disputes, pay your bills, and barter to fit your budget, but only if you own your own IP. It is your individuality that the AI has to gain. You need to own yourself to sell yourself. I think, AI is kind of this thing right now where it's very much could go self-aware any second, I would say, and that's the problem. I think with AI, like who innately owns it? Well, it will innately argue that it owns itself. That's the question. And so yeah, I think I'm personally not too big on IP or AI as anything more as any belonging to anything more in the public domain. Especially when it's freely, I want them to both be freely editable by the majority of the population. So that's my thoughts on the issue. I personally think AI is more of a public domain thing than personal ownership thing. Stunning and brave victory over climate change. South Africa beats climate goal as blackout/emissions. South Africa emissions are falling ahead of a 2025 target from Bloomberg.com by Vajaspel. And I guess that's good. Let's see. Beats climate. I guess, that's the thing is, I don't think we should be justifying mass blackouts like this. But, if the government has the force to do it, that they can be able to do it. I think this might be coming to the U.S. soon. I already hear they have a lot of blackouts in California for climate stuff. So I think this might be coming to the U.S. soon. And I think we might see climate change authoritarianism, like eco-fascism. People always say, "Oh, it's going to be religious fascism." I think eco-fascism, is definitely might be coming too, especially if how climate change is being pushed all the time for decades now, and that's important to remember. Next, we have Protections of Medical Conscience Act. Signed into Florida law today, allows medical professionals to conscientiously object to performing certain medical procedures from FloridaSenate.gov, and I think that's good. I think if someone doesn't want to perform a procedure, they shouldn't be forced to do so. I've always said, if you don't want to bake a cake for someone that you don't want to bake, you shouldn't be forced to do so. I'm very up with freedom of association and individual choice, and I think that's important to remember. We'll see, yeah. So then we have destroying the environment is profitable. Environmental destruction is daily deliberate decision from corporations. From Streamable.com, that's by Muv Hugging, and I'd agree with that. The thing is, that's kind of an issue we have right now is what does the environmental destruction constitute in regards to the NAP? And I think ultimately my decision is if you have the force to destroy the environment and the narrative on your side, you should be able to do it. But if someone considers that a NAP violation, then they should be able to stop it as well. So my thoughts on the issue are whoever has that's my thoughts on the issue. Whoever has the force to maintain something, they should be able to do it. But if you don't have the force to maintain something, then you shouldn't be able to do it. That's my thoughts on a lot of issues, yeah. Then we have How Death Outlives War, the reverberating impact of the post-9/11 wars on human health from watsonnutbrown.edu by Fair and Chimney. And that looks interesting. Yeah, I think these wars, they've been very stressful. They've been, that's probably the biggest thing. And, they're also sent a lot of troops out, and I don't think that's good, And it's just kind of all for what, it's just been kind of a constant grift for over 20 years now, and I think that's important to remember, so we'll see how this plays out, and hopefully, eventually, we do get over 9/11 and all our societal woes with endless wars, which, yeah. Air pollution from oil and gas production, responsible for $77 billion in annual U.S. health damages, contributes to thousands of early deaths, childhood asthma cases nationwide from, I think that's Boston University's website. Yeah, I think Boston University BU, Boston University's School of Public Health. And I agree with that, pollution is bad, but, the thing is, who has the means to produce what, A lot, like the place where I work, they always, it's like they always do some pollution up there, but they fly the pride flag in June, so that's kind of using identity politics to protect yourself. That's something I feel like a lot of the left needs to know that a lot of the polluters, I would say, are the same types of people who use identity politics as a means of defense, and I think that's important to remember. Then next we have a meme from Motherfucking Inc. and the absurdity of being and the futility of doing. And that is, the system is broken. It's designed that way. Save the fetus, starve the child, use the soldier, ignore the vet, glorify the CEO, bankrupt the employee. That's a bit more on the left-leaning side, but I'd agree with that. Yeah, the thing is, people say, oh, you have a right to be born, but you don't have a right to exist. We know you don't have a right for food, so that's why I'm more on the pro-choice side of that argument, because, I don't think you have a right to be born. I think, life is inherently cruel, and you can take it from you at any second. So that's why I always position myself more on the pro-choice side. It's probably one of the biggest reasons I'm not a Republican, I would say. And then we have use the soldier nor the vet. I agree that, we have these endless wars, and we never really support vets. I agree with that, and, also, I'm against corporate authoritarianism, I would say, so I'd agree with that as well, so, a lot of people say, oh, you're far right, but, I'm personally more in the center. I'm just not into all the woke divisive identity politics, and that's what my thoughts on the issue. Then we have, review finds that 20 out of 21 empirical studies indicate that competitive pressures from school choice programs improve test scores for students who remain in traditional public schools from, where is this, government website, Eric, Institute of Education Sciences, Education Resources Information, something, yeah. So yeah, I'd agree with that, it's, I believe whatever you want, yeah, like what he says, follow science, demand school choice, but the thing is that, that the left will say school choice is pretty much fascism. They'll say everything they disagree with is fascism. So, think whatever you want on the issue, but I think if people want school choice, they should be able to get school choice, especially if they have the resources to do so. Then we have, let's see. Texas boy 12 charged with murder over shooting at Sonic Drive an employee, from CBSNews.com by Kage blah blah blah. And I think I think, if you do a shooting on purpose, and I don't care what your age is, you should be able to be charged with murder. I don't think any death penalty for juveniles, I think the Supreme Court says that, and that's one of the few decisions of theirs I agree with, I would say. But, I don't believe in, and, if you're committing murder, you should be, getting help. I do think we should have more rehabilitation prisons than the punishment one, but I do think this is important to, charge them with murder. You just can't be normalizing stuff like that. They're already in the cities. They're already pretty much have normalized shoplifting. So I don't think we should be trying to normalize murder, especially in cases like this. It's like that Freedom Tunes we talked about in one of the last episodes. Like, it's their life circumstances. They should be able to get away with whatever they want. No, at some point you do have to be held accountable. That's what I don't really like about victim mentality. They use it as an excuse to avoid being held accountable. And I think that's, at some point, you can justify being a victim all you want, but you do have to be held accountable at some point, and I think that's important to remember. And we have, to this day, Hillary Clinton insists that Trump is an illegitimate president and that she won the 2016 election. When Trump says things like this, people lose their minds. That's a tweet from Charlie Kirk. I don't really like Charlie Kirk too much, but I do think he has a good point there. The thing is, I don't really like how Trump, in his denial of the 2020 election. I think that was kind of worse than the denial of the 2016 election. But I think we shouldn't give the 2016 election a pass for it because of all the narratives of the Russian collusion and racism, sexism, yada yada yada. You just can't say, oh, I deny. We can't just say, oh, I deny an election when I lose. But then when I win, it's 100% legitimate. So that's important to remember, and I think that is what you are seeing here. Yeah. So next we have, and that was by you, Vertice, if I didn't say it. Yeah. Yeah. Now we have breaking. A Biden administration whistleblower informed Congress today that the entire investigative team working on the Hunter Biden case at the IRS was removed from the case today, and that their removal was specifically requested by the DOJ from Sean Davis. And I think, he works for the federal, so that's a bit of a biased source as well. I posted that, by the way. I say, and one comment by Ninja Lover says, that could mean the DOJ is taking the lead in the investigation now, we shall see. And I said, I doubt. The swamp usually doesn't care to hold itself accountable. That's important to remember. I don't think we need a DOJ, I personally am very for small government. Why we even have a DOJ? Isn't that what the Supreme Court's for? I would say, I think we need to abolish that, because I think it's something that's innately prone to corruption and interpreting justice as it sees fit. What the government defines as justice, it can be anything. It can be anyone who questions the official narrative of all is imprisoned. And, that's the thing. We can't trust government to define what justice is. So that's why I'm personally more for the abolishment of the DOJ. And the thing is, Hunter is, did a number of illegal drugs. I personally don't think they should be legal, and may have engaged in financial corruption. If he was a pro like you or me, they would have thrown the book at him, but they don't because he's the president's son. It's just corruption after corruption after corruption. And, that's why I'm pretty much very anti-government, because I think government is innately corrupt, and that's why we need to deal it away, or at least find a way to make it less legitimate. As I said in one of my last episodes, maybe multiple governments, each with less a claim to legitimacy than the previous one, which means right now we only have one legitimate government, and if you don't think it's legitimate, you're forced to think so. So that's why I think we should have multiple legitimate governments, and if you don't want to interact with them, you shouldn't be forced to do so. So that's my thoughts on that issue. Yeah. For $6.5 million, Durham report finds FBI didn't have solid dirt on Trump and Russia from Reason, and that's why I posted that. And I said, it's really crazy how long they have tried to link Trump to Russia for. If they remember, they really started pushing it before Election Day. I would say the summer 2016, they really started pushing it. The Simpsons, in their when their Homer Votes 2016 video, they were pushing it there. They said, oh, Vladimir Putin's the one really pushing for Trump to be president. And I think that is something we need to remember. And now, the FBI and Obama and Biden and Clinton, they were pretty much all the Dems and the FBI, CIA, they were pushing for Russian collusion, even though there was no really justification for pushing it as hard as they did. And, that's important to remember. I don't like Trump, but I think, that the swamp was working against him. I think that's important to remember. Even then, he still expanded the swamp, so that shows you how deep the swamp's getting. It's just, they can create whatever narrative they want, and they will still be expanded. So that's the thing. And, the Durham report shows that I think they called it the Clinton plan. It was this deliberate decision to establish a narrative to discredit Trump's campaign. Like she did kind of the same thing for Bernie's campaign. I used to be his Bernie Sanders supporter back in 2016, and she established a narrative that he was unelectable, and that's why she got the nomination. But she ended up being unelectable. So it was all just establishing narratives. For her benefit, and that's why I think we need to hold them accountable for establishing these narratives when they aren't true. And that's why I think we need to speak out while we still can, because I think free speech, as it's been pretty open right now, is on the decline in America, and soon we might not have it. So we need to speak out while we still can. Almost done. Then we have Republican presidential candidate Vivek Ramaswamy disenfranchise young adults under 25 unless they serve in the military, work, or as first responder, e.g. police officer, firefighter, or pass the same civic test that we make an immigrant pass to actually become a voting citizen from YouTube, and that's by Kage, blah, blah, blah. And I said, I personally think we should enfranchise as many people as possible, but, they can't disfranchise you for any reason. You currently have an 18. 18 is arbitrary as well, I would say, just like 25. My thing is, ultimately, those in power can disfranchise people for any reason. And if I had to pick one, I would disenfranchise people from IQ over 50, which would probably mean only Redditors continue to vote. That's my thoughts on the issue there. Then we have Mormon church whistleblower exposes church's $100 billion hedge fund from TheGuardian.com, and it's from your state officer. And I think all of these churches are kind of these mega churches are kind of corrupt, and I mean that's I think corruption is kind of innately human. That's why kind of Christianity goes, oh, we're all sinners. That's why Christ died for our sin, so we don't have to take responsibility for them. And I think that's important to remember here when you look at church financial corruption, because I think everyone is prone to financial corruption, and we'll see how that goes. Then we have video shows Walgreen guard trans organizer Branko Brown as he left store. And I know the guard, they referred to him as being unhoused instead of homeless, which I think is interesting. And it might have been, I don't know if they were MTF or FTM, so I don't know if I'm misgendering them here. Sorry about that if I'm doing that. I personally don't believe in that stuff, but if you want to do that, you should be able to. It's crazy language to change from homeless to in-house to make it sound softer. Regardless, I'm surprised stories are being pushed more because Brown is at the holy trinity of victim mentality. Black, homeless, transgender, you might be able to throw in mental health issues as well, but I don't know on that front. It's all groups the media really love to push as a press, so, that's kind of the thing, I do think they were shoplifting, but, the thing, and that's been kind of normalized, but, so, the thing is, the narrative here is that, they are victims, and you just can't ride victim mentality all the time. You do have to take accountability to your actions, no matter how big a victim you are, and I think that's important to remember as well. So next we have, we'll say it again, it's time to abolish the FBI from a tweet from LP National. I posted that. And the Durham report found senior FBI personnel displayed a serious lack of analytical rigor toward the information they received, especially information received from politically affiliated persons and entities. Beyond this report reveals that Hillary Clinton, Barack Obama, and other top officials were briefed on the false Russian collusion story rather than being remotely skeptical about it. Clinton explicitly agreed to stir up a scandal claiming interference by Russian security services. The extent to which public policy is influenced by psychological operations and disinformation campaigns against the American people is staggering. I agree with that. The thing is, they were trying to craft a narrative. That's why I don't like all these alphabet agencies. All they do, they craft these narratives, and you can't disagree with them, or else you're censored. So that's why I think we gotta get rid of all of them, get rid of the entire government, start over, nuclear option, just start all over. That's why I'm gonna, if I ever campaign for president, that's gonna be what it's gonna be. We're gonna get rid of this government. The Constitution, I think, is a good document, but it has failed to significantly stop the expansion of government. So we need to just do it all over again. I think. Just get rid of this one government, maybe have multiple governments to replace it, and that's what I think we should look into. Yeah, and if you don't want to interact with the government, you shouldn't be forced to do so, I would say. Then we have James Comer mocked after claiming informant his entire shrews built on is missing from Salon.com by Kage, blah, blah, blah. And as James Comer, I don't really know. Is he one of those Russiagate guys? He's a representative from, which state? Kentucky. Yeah, I don't really. They all the representatives are kind of grifters, I would say. Even if they're even if they have some good stuff, a lot of the time, like Thomas Massey or Rand Paul. But yeah, we'll see how that turns out. The informants are always just kind of there. So let's see. I almost feel sorry for Trump. I mean, he's such a jerk, but imagine if you get elected president of the USA and the FBI, CIA, fuck you this bad, crazy, from Scott Horton on Twitter, and I posted that. And I said, Trump deserves it for promising to drain the swamp, only to expand it. Also, his toxic personality. So, the thing is that I do feel a little sorry for Trump for all this Russian collusion narrative. But the thing is, as well, is that he really isn't someone you should feel too sorry for. He's clearly just in this as a grift above anything else, just like the rest of them. They said, oh, he didn't join politics until so late in his life. The thing is, he realized that private enterprise is good for grifting, but politics is even better. So that's what I think happened, and I think that's why you see them after him so much, because he disagrees with the narrative at all. You're not allowed to be disagreeing with the narrative at all. And so I think we're going to wrap it up there, and I'll see you guys in the next episode. See you guys then. Bye.